Welcome back to Missouri Valley Media Day here on the field of 68. And I'm thrilled to be joined now by new and old Missouri State head coach Cuonzo Martin. Cuonzo, it is
Don't
the
call him
second time
old.
that you are.
What are you calling him old
Hey,
for?
he was the old Missouri State coach too, and now he's the new Missouri State coach. I'm
That's
setting it
fair.
up. It's his second time with the program. He is back. Let me ask you this: the last time that you were with Missouri State, you won the 2011 Missouri Valley regular season title. You are back now. How do you get this thing going to the point where you are winning league titles once again?
He had hair then, Rob. Rob, he had hair back then.
Boy, you guys crazy. I mean, really, man. I think with anything, like with any team you're building, when you're building a winning program, it's the talent, the tenacity, and I think more than ever the will to win. I mean, somebody has to win the game, and I don't want to sound like this a cliche statement, but you got to have guys that have a desire to win and compete. There has to be a level of togetherness amongst each other. Whether you're on the court, off the court together, you have to have great relationships. I think that's very important in today's climate. And then we have to have respect for one another. I think that is vital in the approach because with NIL, parents want their children to be successful. Everything is so individualized, and there's nothing wrong with that. We got to have respect for one another. And then we got to generate some leadership. And that comes, in my opinion, through passion and a vision and a commitment. And there's a level of togetherness that goes with all that. But I like where we are right now, and I like our program.
All right, listen, we're happy to have you back in college hoops. I don't know what you're doing the last couple of years. Can you fill me in? What were you doing? Were you sleeping late?
No,
Going
no,
for
no.
long walks with your wife? Give me the
That's for
Cuonzo
sure.
Martin daily routine the
My,
last couple of years.
my schedule for 2 years, really, and it was all scripted, was great. It was we get up in the morning before my daughter started driving, so she has her license now. But before she started driving, we'd get up, we'd take her to school. Then my wife and I would come back, we walk the dog, and that was about our dog. For some reason, she demands a 2 hour, 2 mile walk every day. She demands that, or she can't function. So it was at least 2 mile walk, and then we bring her back after the walk, and then we would work out together. My wife and I had a homemade weight room in the weight room. But we also had a fitness center, so homemade weight room in our garage, and so we work out there. We were down in Florida, Orlando, Florida, and then I would say around 11:30 to noon, we kind of veered off there, whether it's reading, writing. 'Cause September 23rd of 22, I started writing, so we would do that. And then my wife would do what she was doing. And then obviously we had to pick our daughter up. But then when my daughter got her driver's license, she would drive to school. So my wife and I, we do the same thing. But amongst a lot of other business things and financial situations we would deal with together. But it was always great. But really, man, my day was filled in the morning without question. I had house shoes or sandals, whichever one you called it, swim trunks, and a T-shirt on. And then we go work out. I put sneakers on. But that was my day for 2 years.
So wait, why did you? Okay, so it sounds like a great life, Gonzo. A great
Yeah,
life, right? You have money.
it is.
Listen, you coached at Tennessee, Cal, Missouri. You made enough money. I know you're young still. Rob called you old. You're not old. You're young. Um, why? Why did you want to get back into college basketball at a time in which a lot of coaches want to get out of college basketball?
Great question. I think really for me, it's the joy in coaching and leading young men, and I've always felt like my mission as coach, you try to win as many games as possible. That part is understood, but I've always felt like my mission is to help a young man to get where he's trying to go, or have him see what he can't see. And growing up in East St. Louis, humble beginnings, but a lot of love, a lot of passion, a lot of people that care for you. I just felt like my mission was to be able to, and my ministry is to be able to help that young man find his way in life. Because oftentimes we can't see. I mean, my mom talked about getting an education. My elementary, high school coaches, those guys talked about getting an education. But what does that really mean? What is the impact of getting a degree? I mean, how can this degree help me in my life? So I think those things are very important. And when I got to Cal Berkeley, it was the first time, and I think in my career, we've graduated 54 out of 55 guys that were seniors. And that's not something I take a tremendous amount of pride in. What I mean by that is they earned it. I didn't earn it. So I don't want to have a trophy saying I did it because I didn't do the work. But when I got to Cal Berkeley, I realized the impact of not just a degree, but having a successful career. So now, as your job as a coach, you spend so many hours with these guys on the court trying to get better, 3 hour practice, extra individual work, weightlifting, and that's all year round, but we don't give them a chance to do internships. So now as a coach, it's like, hold up now. if you're not going to give him a chance to do internships, at least work that phone to get this guy a job to have a successful career when he's done playing. And I felt the impact when I was at Cal Berkeley, the importance of a degree. Everybody talks about it, and you see a young man gets a degree, but coach, did you help him find his way? And I think that's very important for me. So to get back in, and my wife just said, I would say around February, early February, my wife said, I think you need to get back in. And not that she was tired of it, so don't get me wrong there. She just felt like, she said, I think that's your ministry. I think that's where you find joy in seeing young men be successful.
So you've talked a lot about your family so far in this interview. You have there is a member of the Martin family on this roster. So my question to you is, how much is mom going to play a role in like how you coach him in practice, whether or not he gets playing time, the minutes that he's going to get? Like, are you worried about coming home and getting yelled at because he's not playing 25 minutes a game?
Not at all. But the one thing about my wife, she's the youngest of five, and she has four older brothers. 4 out of 5 of them, 4 of them were Purdue grads. So she understands that she grew up in humble beginnings as well in Hammond, Indiana. So she's a beautiful soul, a phenomenal lady. She worked in the corporate world for 13 years, but she's been a stay-at-home mom for our last, I guess, man, it's been a long time, 20. But she's done a great job there. But no, because she understands. Now, the same son you're talking about, my son Chase, he has a degree in mechanical engineering from Purdue University, one of the top engineering schools in the world. So he has a degree already. So now in this 5th year, he felt the need to come help his pops out. So that's great. And I'm happy to have him on board, man. He's a phenomenal young man. He's a very intelligent young man. He can see the game.
Yeah,
see
we
the
can
floor.
tell. We figured that part out.
All those things, man. Just so for me, it's a joy. And like anything, he'll earn what he gets, and he's working very hard. He's a tough, hard-nosed guy. He understands the game, and playing at Purdue has a lot of life lessons he learned on and off the course. So he's been a great asset to our program.
All right. So if I gave you a test, you have 15 new players on this team. We know you know one, your kid, right? You can't screw that one up.
Yes,
How long did it take you to learn the entire roster? At what point after you got the job could you have rattled off the entire roster without screwing it up? And not nicknames, like full names, right? Jalen Hampton and Des White and Vince. Like, how long would it taken you?
I mean, that probably took I would say 3 weeks to a month consistently, because what happens is, what I try to do is not only the name, but also where they come from. And in recruiting, you build relationships with families, their parents, and all those things. Now, is that easy? No, but I try to make a commitment, because one thing I've always said to guys, and I really grasped this concept maybe about 10, 12 years ago, because, you know, all these writings come out, different authors write different books, and you start hearing stuff about, well, players, they won't play or perform for you unless they know you care as a coach.
Sure.
Well, I agree to that to an extent, but not to an extreme extent. But what I mean by that, so why don't they get to know me as a coach? Like I say to our guys all the time, you never ask me how my grandmother's doing. You never ask me, what did I get a degree in? So why do I have to know you? I mean, it's a two-way relationship. In order for us to get to grow together, I said, we're in the trenches, we're in the battlefield. Let's get to know each other. So I think it's just as important that you get to know me as well. So again, I don't believe in all that players want. They don't. If you don't know them, they won't play. I don't agree with that, because Coach K didn't have to know me to play hard. I was playing hard because I loved the game and I wanted to be a great player, and I listened out of respect to Coach K. I didn't sit back and say, well, I don't think he doesn't like me as much, so I'm not going to play hard. I don't agree with that.
All right, there's 2 guys specifically I want to ask you about on this roster. The first one is Des White, transfer from Austin Peay, sophomore. You always kind of circle those guys that make that freshman to sophomore leap. What have you seen out of him this summer? And the other one is Mose Downing Rivers, a national champion, yes, point guard at was it Barton Community College?
Barton.
Yeah, point guard there, averaged 6.6 assists, national champion, 6'6" point guard. What have you seen from those two?
Well, with Des White was a guy I knew at Mizzou, so I started looking at him maybe as a sophomore. What he does, I would consider an elite level shooter without question. He's a guy that can make shots. But the thing that's impressive about him is his work ethic. He works extremely hard, and you say that about a lot of guys, but he works hard. He works at a high level. But he doesn't have workouts where it's kind of 50% casual workout. His workouts at a high level all the time, so it translates in game situations. So you have to give a lot of credit to his brothers. One of his brothers, a college coach that really helped him, but his high school coaches and the people that's been around him, because he has a great work ethic and again an elite level shooter, but can do more than shoot the ball. And then Mose's 6'5.5", 6'6", physical. Now you're talking about a guy that's probably 210 at the point guard, but a natural point guard, can really see the floor well. Big physical guy. He's one of those guys. He should be hovering around elite in defense and defensive player of the year because of how he guards the ball, and his size, his length, his athleticism, and put pressure on the ball handling. He's one of those guys that'll blow up a ball screen because he's probably just as big and just as physical as any big guy that's setting the ball screen. But I think he has a chance to be great. And the one thing about him, he averaged like almost 7 points a game, 7 rebounds a game. 6 or 7 assists at Barton. So he's a guy that loves the pass. He gets downhill. And I think if there's an improvement with his game is the consistency of the three-point shot. Not that it's a bad shot, but I think he loves to pass the ball. So what we spend a lot of time with him on is focusing on when that shot is open to take that shot. But he gets downhill and he's physical now because he can hit big guys and still finish at the rim.
All right, give me the biggest difference from Cuonzo Martin 1.0 at Missouri State and 2.0. The biggest difference in you, because that was your first head job, right? That was younger Cuonzo Martin. Now it's a little bit more seasoned Cuonzo Martin. That's what I will call it, not older.
Yes. I think the most important thing, like we all do, is wisdom. It's wisdom over time, because what happens, and even when I speak behind the scenes and Zoom calls to assistant coaches all the time, when you go from an assistant coach to a head coach, you're never in front of anything. The media, you're always behind the scenes. So you most cases, you never hear an assistant coach talk unless he's talking to a recruit on the phone. So now all of a sudden, you're thrust into the spotlight, the cameras, everything is on you. Now it's magnified with Zoom calls, everything. So you can't run from it. So you have to understand what you're doing, what you're saying as a coach, how you're leading. And I think the other thing is the courage. The courage to get out of my comfort zone and to not get consumed with somebody else thinks about you. You are who you are, and be confident in that. And I think, to grow, I think I've grown in compassion, not that because I've gotten older, but just compassion of what young men go through in today's society with social media.
You're old school. Hey, you were taught to be old school. You were old school, correct?
Yes, and I love that, and I live that, and I think what happens, and we have to give grace and kindness to the word old school, because I think that's a compliment when you say somebody's old school, unless you're mistreating people. I think sometimes people get it misconstrued when they say old school, and that's how people treat and how they talk down to you. This is not this. My old school's teachings, what my grandmother taught me: life lessons, wisdom, spiritual growth, how to become the best version of yourself. That's what I'm about. And it just, but I demand. But what I also say to young guys, if you're in my program, especially in most cases, if you're raised by your mom or even if dad's at home, it's just learn a different form of love. My love is different than your mom. I still love you. Love is love, but it's just different form of love. My accountability is a high level and it's at a premium, because this is what we have to do in order to get where we have to go.
Last thing I got for you, Cuonzo. You got 15 new faces on this roster. You are a Purdue guy. The one thing we know about Purdue guys is culture is important, right? What's the first step in kind of developing that as you take over this new program? You have these new faces. You are a new face to all of these guys that you were bringing. Like, how do you what's the first step to be able to develop that camaraderie?
I think the first thing and the most important thing, once they're in your program, there has to be a commitment. And if you look at the definition of commitment, an agreement or a pledge to do something that you're committed to or in the future. So we got to be committed as a team. That's the first and the most important thing. Let's eliminate how much money you get in NIL, how much your scholarship costs of attendance, all those things, man. Are you committed to do what we need to do, even when things are uncomfortable for you? Are you committed to it? And I think that's very important. And then you have to have a level of respect when adversity hit. Can you maintain it? Because what happens when you first get around each other is joy. You're having a good time. It's a celebration. But all of a sudden, when that ball is tipped, in our first game at Butler on November the 4th, when the referee does this and it throws it up, there are 5 guys on the floor. And that means there's another 8 or 9 that's on the sideline that thought they were starters. How do we handle this when adversity hit, late game situation, when you're not on the floor, when you thought you were a good three-point shooter, but we got 5 guys out there that are better three-point shooters. Where you thought you were a good defender, we got 5 guys out there that are three-point good defenders. And then all of a sudden, after the game, as a coaching staff, we go give mom and dad a hug. When in June and July, we gave them a hug. It was a great hug. We laughed and had a great time. Well, now it's so when the ball is tipped and minutes are dispersed, and they didn't look like what you thought, is that hug still the same genuine hug? And I think that's very important. We have to be committed across the board. So my thing is everybody, not just the player, but the family. We all have to be committed to the task at hand.
All right, I got one final one before we let you go. In 92, 93, this was Purdue's top 3 scorers. Big Dog, Glenn Robinson, was the leading scorer. He averaged 24 a game. Cuonzo Martin, second, 12 a game. Third, Matt Painter, 8.6 points a game, 4.5 assists a game. All right, listen, give me some dirt on Paint the player, Cuonzo. Give me a story. Give me something of maybe, I don't know, Painter crying in practice, something good that we haven't heard before.
Well, I don't know if I give you something good like that with you, but like Paint was really, so Paint's 6'6", but Paint was really, he was a point guard for us. But he was one of those guys that coach could plug him in 1, 2, or 3. He just fit in because he understood what was going on. He knew what coach wanted on the floor. And Paint was always my roommate in road games, so we had good time, laughs, and all that. But he was really he brought his hard hat to work, and he was one of those guys. The thing that I think that made Paint good, and I think this is something that a lot of young players nowadays struggle with, because again, for example, the NBA still has 450 jobs, maybe hovering around there. It's still the same amount of jobs, but for some reason we think millions of guys can make it. But what happened, Paint understood early that I'm not going to be an NBA player. So let me be the best college player. Let me help these guys, help our team, help the coaching staff. So he understood that piece. That's hard for a lot of young guys nowadays to accept the fact that I'm not going to be an NBA player, but I still got to work like that. So he understood that part at an early age, and that's what made him a good player and a good teammate.
Well, listen, Cuonzo, we appreciate you being here. We are happy that you are back in the world of college basketball, and we will be back with more Missouri Valley Media Day coming up next.